Welcome back to the Black Lion Blueprint. Today, we are diving into the mindset blueprint. So, how to cultivate a mindset that improves performance and longevity. Every lasting change begins in the mind. Before you can build a stronger body, you need the mindset that sustains it. Most people don't struggle with knowing what to do, they struggle with staying consistent when life gets hard. Mindset is what keeps you grounded when motivation fades. It's not about staying positive, it's about awareness, discipline, and resilience. In this guide or this episode, but also the guide you'll download, you'll learn to understand the thought patterns that hold you back, clarify your core values and strengthen your why, build awareness through consistent reflection, develop resilience through small, intentional challenges, and align your daily actions with purpose or align your daily actions with the person you want to become. Okay. So, in the description down below in this YouTube video, if you're watching it on YouTube, listen to the podcast on YouTube, there will be a guide that you can download and you can follow along with the guide. And I'm going to clarify more points on it. I'm going to go into more detail on certain aspects that are in this guide. And if you're listening to the episode, then make sure to go over to the YouTube after you listen or get to a computer and download that guide so you can follow along through there or you can read through it on your own time. Okay. All right. So, how to use this guide or blueprint. So, you'll read through each section slowly and take notes where something resonates with you. You don't need to apply everything at once because that's a recipe for failure. Just choose one idea that stands out and practice it until it becomes part of your routine. Return to this guide whenever motivation dips or you need to refocus on what truly matters. All right. So before we dive into how to strengthen your mindset, it's helpful to understand common thought patterns that often get in the way. So before you can change your habits, you have to understand the thoughts that drive them. Most people don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because they get stuck in the same patterns of thinking, quietly sabotaging progress. Okay. So the first way of thinking or the first pattern of thinking is this all or nothing thinking. So if I can't do it perfectly, I might as well not do it at all. This mindset turns small detours, like just small little issues that you may have, into pretty much dead ends. That, okay, since I have I just failed with this particular thing, so I might as well not even try, which is a terrible mindset to have. And again, this could just be a pattern that you're used to performing in your life. But if you can recognize this pattern, you can also correct this pattern of thinking. So the way to correct it, right, would simply be to, okay, this didn't work out. What adjustments can I make to make it work? I had a conversation with somebody recently about the diet that they did. They said they went on this diet and they did it for 2 years and they lost a lot of weight or whatnot. But they started to, the weight loss stopped and then they started to gain weight back and then they couldn't figure out why. They just started working out more and thought that was the key and it didn't help. And then when I asked more questions, then and this is important, you have to ask yourself more questions or at least know what questions to ask to make the adjustments. And then I found out, I was just like, oh, well, you didn't eat enough of this. And when you don't eat enough of this, and when you don't eat enough of this particular macronutrient, that's going to reduce your ability to actually lose weight from where you are standing because your body's trying to hold on to the rest that it has. And then it kind of like clicked, the light bulb moment went off. So doing this one particular thing and then it stops working and then you're just like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. I'm just going to throw in the towel on it. You have to know what adjustments to make. Even if you just make one adjustment, maybe it's you have a couple of other tries that you need to do to make that proper adjustment. Okay. So consistency is built from imperfection, not from waiting for the perfect moment as well. Okay. So it's not the perfect diet. It's not the perfect workout plan. It's not the perfect recovery routine or recovery hack or whatnot or sleep routine. It's taking small steps towards the right direction. Okay. The next mindset is quick fix mindset. So wanting results fast leads to frustration when progress slows. So real change happens when you stop chasing speed and start mastering the process. So if you have a goal and you know what the habits are that you need to establish to accomplish that goal, focusing more on the habits And in that process, in refining those habits as you go through it, is I'll say the better way of going about it. Yes, we do need goals. Like goals are good things to shoot for because it gives us some sort of direction. And we'll get into values because if we can pretty much sustain those, we can sustain the habits that we contribute to those goals by, creating more values, or not creating values, but discovering what our values are. But we'll get into that later. But quick fix mindset, simply put, thinking that you're going to lose weight in 6 weeks by doing some extreme crash diet, or by doing some extreme workout routine, isn't going to give you the habits, isn't going to allow you to establish the habits that will actually help you create long-term change. So having a quick fix mindset isn't the way for lasting performance or longevity. If you want things to last, and I'm pretty sure you do if you're listening to this right now, you don't want to just have a flash in the pan. You don't want to just lose weight for a couple of months and then the weight comes right back, or lose weight for that year and then it comes right back, and then you just try the same thing you did before, that one specific protocol, but it's not a habit-based thing. It's you do this, you get result. It's more like you establish one habit that can lead into another better habit. And then that's what leads to long-term progress. Okay. So quick fix mindset is a recipe for disaster when you're not seeing the progress that you thought you should see. And then you try and jump from thing to thing, right? Believe me, I'm not just saying this from a pedestal, because I've done this and I still fall into these traps nowadays. The biggest thing is being aware of it. Okay. So the next thing is comparison thinking. It's easy to look at others and feel behind, for sure. I know this firsthand. But comparison distracts you from the only metric that matters, your own growth. Okay. So we oftentimes run into the trap of seeing people where they are now, right? So if we aspire to accomplish something, yeah, we're going to look at people who are where we want to be. And sometimes we can mistake what they're doing now as what we should be doing now. And what they're doing now can seem very overwhelming. And we forget that what they're doing now isn't necessarily the same thing that they did before. And sometimes what they're doing now may be a lot less than what they actually did to get to where they are now. I say one of the biggest things is like in business, you'll see people I see this all the time. They'll say like, you don't need to do this and you don't need to do that and you don't need to do that much. There's so many different camps out here. You don't need to do that much. In reality, what they did to get off the ground was a lot. They had to do a lot of work to get their business off the ground. And then they found their sweet spot to make it work and make it sustainable. Now, there are some things that they may have done that weren't productive, and they're teaching you those things that they didn't do that were productive. But to tell you that it's not going to take a lot of work is pretty much falsifying what they actually did to get to where they are as well. So you can say to people, like in training too, I tell my clients all the time, hey, you don't have to beat your body up to get really good high performance metrics. You don't, to improve your strength, to improve your endurance, to get more strong, to get more power, um, to improve your run times, to perform better at your sport. You don't have to run your head into a brick wall all day long. Okay. You don't have to really beat your body up. But again, I did the same thing. But because I know a different strategy and a different way of accomplishing that, then I can show them that way, right? So there is a little bit of nuance in between that comparison thinking, but we're mainly speaking to the fact that looking at somebody else and worrying about where they are and how they got there and thinking that, okay, it might be too tough for us to get there, or we should do exactly what they did, can be discouraging when we don't have, one, the resources that they have or had, when we don't have the same lifestyle that they have, or the mindset. Our mindset is different. The way our mind works is different. The way we operate is completely different. And then we may have a few character traits that are similar, but in reality, there's a lot of things that differ there. We may, more than likely, we have different core values. So the way we approach it may be completely different. So we have to worry about and focus in on our own growth if we really want to make progress and get out of our own way. So the next thing is negative self-talk. So the language you use shapes how you act. Saying I'm lazy, or I always fall off, reinforces the very behavior you're trying to change. Awareness is the first step towards rewriting that story. So I fall into this camp heavily because I used to have a very negative outlook on just my work ethic and what I did. Yes, of course, like if I'm slacking off and I could be doing more, then yes, I'm going to say that. But at the same time, I might just say like, hey, I'm not an academic. So, I can't really learn as well as these other coaches learn, or I can't learn that concept to the depth that they learned it, or I don't have this ability, or I didn't start when they started. So I'm never going to get to the level that they did. That just reinforces the barrier. That just gives you a barrier and gives you an excuse to not move towards something that can enrich your life. So I see it so much now because I really try to practice the habit of embodying, not looking at barriers to my goals or the things that I want to accomplish. I look at what are the possibilities, what are the things I can do to get towards where I want to get to or become who I want to become, right? Because a lot of things come from who you want to become, and then the things kind of go outward from there. Your actions typically will fall in place from there. Okay. So that negative self talk is something that we have to beat back a lot. Okay. Especially if you're used to it. Again, this is a pattern that's being replayed over and over again. If you're subconsciously used to having those negative self talks with yourself, you have to be the person to give yourself those affirmations and back it up with action, even if that is small action, right? Saying I'm not an academic, but I can't study for those hours. Okay, if you can't study for hours, study for 10 minutes a day. Start to embody what you believe you aren't. So once you start to do that on a consistent basis, and it's also tailored towards something you actually value, usually you'll embody that way more than what you thought you could have. Most of the time, it's just that things aren't aligned with our values. And we'll get into that. So the next thing is over identification. So you are not your current state. Feeling unmotivated or inconsistent doesn't define who you are. It's just a moment, not your identity. So if you're unmotivated, sometimes it just could be a lack of alignment with who you essentially are deep down inside, right? If you're not motivated to do that particular thing. Other times it could be just a tremendous amount of fatigue. You could have just like really burned your candle at both ends, and now you're worn out and you don't have the motivation. Really, you don't have the energy to do more. I kind of fall into this whenever it comes to work sometimes. I'll be working all throughout the day, doing a ton of different tasks. And then by the end of the day, I'm over here still trying to push through, but I just can't write anymore, or I just can't come up with any more ideas because I've hit my threshold. And it's knowing that the signs of, okay, you hit a threshold. That's fine. You did what you needed to do for that day. Or inconsistent doesn't mean, or doesn't have to define who you are. It doesn't define who you are. Again, there are ups and downs. There are things that happen, and you need to be okay with being fluid with your life. Most of the time, it's the alignment piece. It's not aligned with who you are and your core values. Okay. So if it's not aligned with who you are, your core values, your why, then most of the time you will be inconsistent with that thing. And then other times it could just be you've done a lot and way too much. So becoming aware of these patterns isn't about judging yourself. It's about noticing when they show up, pausing long enough to question them, and choosing a better response. That's how real change begins, one thought at a time. Okay. So now that we got through those common mindset patterns that really hold us back, let's get into how to start with this guide. So this is just a quick start for you. So before we dive into the actual pillars here, we're going to take about 10 minutes to check in with your mindset. So the goal isn't to fix anything. It's to understand who or where you are right now. Okay. So step one is to clarify what matters most. So write down the three things you care the most about right now. These usually reveal your core values, the things that influence every choice you make, whether you notice them or not. When your daily habits reflect what you value most, consistency becomes natural. When they don't, even small goals start to feel forced. So the next step is to reflect on your current patterns. So look at your last week. What actions supported your goals and which ones held you back? Reflection gives you a perspective and helps you respond instead of react. So when you reflect on these things, you don't just react to, okay, this happened this week. I got to make a change. It's more so, okay, why did that thing happen? Okay, this happened because I actually was a little bit more fatigued this week, or I actually had this thing come up unexpectedly in life. So stress was a little bit more higher, and I had to make some adjustments to my schedule. So, and it was an unexpected thing that I never really dealt with before. So I faltered in the consistency category. And that's okay because, again, it was something that was unexpected, something you never dealt with before. So now you have to learn how to navigate that thing. So really, reflection is definitely going to give you a better perspective instead, so you can not just react and just try and change up everything that you were doing before or saying it doesn't work. It's just like, okay, that's what happened. Let's keep moving forward and see where we can go from here, and we'll continue this reflection and refine as we go. Step 3, build small acts of resilience. So choose one small change this week, something slightly uncomfortable but manageable. It could be training when you don't feel like it, journaling before bed, or finishing what you start. Each small win builds confidence and strengthens your ability to stay steady under stress. So, build small acts of resilience. So that just compounds over time. So, this progress starts with awareness, strengthens through reflection, and then solidifies through challenge. Okay, so we have to be aware first and foremost of what's going on in our mind. And then through reflection, we can start to strengthen the things that we're trying to change with our mindset instead of just reacting to day to day things. And then, challenging those things a little bit more as we continue to move forward in order to build that resilience and solidify a better perspective and a better mindset. Okay. All right. So let's get into these pillars here. So, pillar number 1, understand your why and core values. This is huge for me because once I started to understand this, my why, my core values, and I can put a name to them, things really started to match up for me, and I understood why I gravitated towards other things and I moved away from other things as well. So if you're a person who right now you don't understand your direction and where you're going, or you can't kind of figure out why you decide to go into this direction over that direction, this is for you. All right, so pillar number 1 is understanding your why and core values. So create alignment between what you do and what matters most. So this is huge for me because once I started to understand what my core values are and I could put a name to them, then it helped me understand why I gravitated towards certain things and why I moved away from others. And I can align, I can pretty much put a name to why I did all the actions, or I take all the actions that I do now. And then it helps me like understand how consistent I more than likely will be with certain things, and then also allows me to be okay with if I decide to like pivot and change directions with other things also. But if you're the type of person that's trying to figure out like, you can't understand why you can't stay consistent in your training or consistent with nutrition or your recovery habits or the goal that you have for your training, then this is definitely going to be an important part for you to actually get down. Okay. So what you value most always takes priority. So, whether consciously or not, when your daily actions reflect your deeper values, consistency becomes easier and motivation becomes sustainable. So, understanding your why helps you anchor your training and lifestyle to something more meaningful than temporary goals. So, when life gets hard, your why becomes the reason why you keep showing up. Your why becomes the reason why you keep showing up, right? So, here are some questions to find out your value. So, this is kind of borrowed from kind of Dr. Demartini school of I have quite a few of his books over here, but in the books, one of them is the values factor, and it pretty much gives you a framework for how to discover what your values are. And I'm pretty sure there were other books beforehand, other courses and stuff like that to help you find your values. But here are a few questions that can kind of get you on the right track. So the first one is, what do you spend the most time thinking about, learning about, and working towards? The next one is, where do you naturally invest your energy, focus, or money? The next question, what goals make you feel fulfilled and proud when you pursue them. The next one is, what kind of person do you want to be remembered as? And then the final question is, when life gets difficult, what principles guide your decisions? Is it health, growth, mastery, family, independence, service? So you want to look for patterns, and the themes that repeat are your core values. So for me, I'll just go ahead and say, right? So what do I spend the most time thinking about? A lot of times it's more learning and training. It might be with rehab because I'm in the physical therapy field as well. So I might be thinking about different exercises or different ways to articulate this to a patient, or how this translates over into daily life so I can make that connection for them to follow through with it. What do I enjoy learning about? So I'm learning about these rehab things, and I'm learning about how to communicate that. And all of that can literally fall under the category of learning. It can fall into the category of connection because I'm trying to figure out how to communicate this effectively. And then also teaching. So those are like, obviously, those are my top three right there: teaching, learning, and connecting. And then working towards. So I'm working towards building enough awareness around what I do, which is fitness coaching, to help people live the best life they can, as capable as can, for as long as they can. And I'm trying to build that awareness so that way I can help these people. So I'm working towards being able to teach more people. So I have to learn how to do that. I have to learn how to communicate that message appropriately. And I have to learn how to make that connection. And I want to make that connection. And my job that I do requires me to make a connection as well. So you can say, if you're the type of person that you enjoy being alone, you enjoy, maybe working behind a computer and not really having much human contact, then connection may not be high on your values list. It may be a little bit, maybe like a 10 on your values list, and more of independence, maybe one of your main things, right? Or maybe mastery, or just freedom in general, freedom from other people's opinions, needs, and all those other things. That may be something for you. So here are some examples of values, right? So it could be health. If you value your health and vitality, obviously, if you're listening to this, you do. Growth, family, mastery, freedom, creativity, stability, service, learning, connection, discipline. Those are all examples of values that, when you kind of see what the common themes are, you can tend to narrow it down and come up with what your core values are. So you really want to take some time to go over those, answer those questions for yourself, and then condense them down and see which ones overlap. And then you can find maybe your top three core values. And that'll give you a sense of direction and help you kind of anchor your training, your nutrition, your recovery habits, and just whatever goal you're trying to achieve down by your values, by connecting that there. So it can definitely help out, because it helped me out a lot. And I learned that a lot of the clients that are really consistent with their training, they have a solid hold on what their values are. And those that aren't, and this is not judgment at all, this is just clarity. Those that aren't as consistent, they don't have a solid grasp on what their values are, or their why, really. And that's what keeps them kind of like spinning their wheels and changing their goal really quickly, or jumping from thing to thing. And believe me, I get it, because I was that person as well. So yeah. So just to take away from that first pillar of finding what your core values are, is just clarity. Clarity on your values creates direction for you, like I was just saying before. So when your actions align with what you care about most, consistency follows naturally. So you typically wonder why, or we wonder why we can't stay consistent with some things. A lot of times it just doesn't align with our core values. And especially if we haven't investigated that, we can pretty much, not have direction for a long time. All right, so let's go into pillar number 2. So the next pillar is reflect consistently. So here the goal is to build awareness and perspective through deliberate reflection. So if you see me looking down a lot, I wrote this out because I wanted to be really clear on this one. So sometimes I'll wing it, but with this one, I really wanted to make sure that I clarify all of these points by reading out what I wrote. Because the mindset stuff, you can go off way left field with it. So I wanted to stay on track. Okay. So Reflection turns experience into insight. So it helps you see patterns that emotion might blur in the moment and ensures your actions continue to align with purpose. So let's just say I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I had one training session to where I was going for a max snatch and I was going for a max clean and jerk, and I had just did this 12-week cycle, and I was all prepared. I had my singlet and everything, and I was telling people, yeah, I'm maxing out today, and hella excited. So I get there, I'm warming up, and things are feeling good. But then as I'm getting closer to those maxes, things aren't feeling that great. And long story short, I ended up not maxing out anything. I didn't hit any PRs or whatsoever. And I literally almost cried. I'm like, I spent all this time doing this long training program and I have nothing to show for it. But the funny thing is, after I had that moment and then I did another training cycle, I was a lot stronger just in the basic lifts. Maybe it might not have been a max snatch or whatnot, but in my squat, in my push press, in my overhead pressing movements, I was a lot stronger. So it wasn't for nothing. But having that short-sighted mindset on letting my emotion pretty much control what I thought was my end outcome, kind of blurred the reflection of, okay, since I didn't hit a PR, but what did change? Oh, okay, I'm more consistent in my strength lift, so that'll allow me to push my strength a little bit more in my next training session, or my technique improved. So now I can, perform heavier snatches with better consistency. So then that can translate maybe later on down the line into me potentially hitting a PR. Um, or even just looking at it as refinement and being like, all right, so since I didn't hit a like what went wrong here in training? Was it that maybe my technique was a little off that morning, or was it the nutrition? Maybe like leading up to that, I didn't fuel myself enough. Maybe I didn't get that much sleep that night before. Maybe I didn't do enough of a prep, whatever. It could have been better, even though I had my emotion reflecting on, all right, what happened would allow me to move forward with better clarity than just being like, okay, I didn't PR. This training program sucks. I need to scrap everything and just, do something completely different. Wrong approach. Completely wrong approach, because I did it way too many times throughout my fitness journey. And it always ended up in me coming back to the fundamentals and being like, all right, I need to just stick with something for a consistent period of time instead of jumping from thing to thing when I don't get, like we said before, the quick fix mindset, the results that I want. And especially with the body, we got to understand, like, the body isn't just this machine we could put a coin in and then we're going to get out what we want. It takes time to adapt to certain things. Um, and if we can have a better outside perspective, that's why I always preach having a coach. That they can have a objective perspective on what's going on instead of us allowing our emotions to get in the way, and then us pretty much spinning our wheels for a whole entire year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, and not really getting anywhere with our training. Okay. All right. So again, like I said, this is why I wrote this stuff down, because I can get off on a tangent, but just know that this reflecting piece is huge, to not allow yourself to go way off left field or continue to spin your wheels and waste time in years in your fitness journey, not getting where you want to get to. Okay. So you want to ask yourself these questions here. I'm sorry, before that, you want to set a rhythm that works for you for the reflection. So that can be daily check ins, that can be weekly reviews, or monthly reflections. So, daily check ins, you can literally journal in the morning, or if you want to reflect at night, that's perfectly fine too. But this is for you if you're not used to reflecting on what went on in your day, then you may want to do this more consistently so you can get in the habit of reflecting more instead of reacting more. Now, if you're the type of person you're good at reflecting, then maybe you want to push it off to weekly reviews. So I do this with all my clients. They have a weekly review of their recovery from training, their sleep, their energy levels. So that way we can have more accountability on, all right, we got objective measures on what adjustments may need to be made instead of kind of guessing and thinking that, oh, it just might be this. So let's make this adjustment, right? So it's just like, okay, I didn't perform as well as I wanted to in the competition. I think I need to improve my grip strength. So we need to do more grip work. Okay, you didn't perform that well in your competition, but what happened during this training cycle? Did we do the same thing that we did the last training cycle? Yes. Did the last competition go great? Yes. So what changed? Did your nutrition change? Oh yeah, I didn't eat as much this time around, or I fell off of my routine a little bit more, and I indulged a little bit more. Or no, my sleep was a little off because I had some family stress that went on. So there's a lot of things that you want to take into account before you just decide to guess at one thing. Because again, you don't want to spin your wheels with the wrong thing, tackling the wrong thing. So you got to have that reflection in there. So, but now another way to do it is if you are really good with tracking these things in your reflection, then maybe it's monthly reflections. So maybe with your training, you're doing weekly reflections on your sleep and recovery and stuff like that to kind of guide where you go with your training. But when it comes to your mindset, maybe it's monthly reflections on, am I heading in the right direction that I want to? Or let's go with these questions. What went well this month for me? What went well? What challenged me? What did I learn? And then what will I adjust next time? Right. So this is a great way of not judging yourself and more so being like, these are the adjustments that I want to make because this is going to help me continue to move towards the goal, or become the person that I want to become. So having that monthly reflection can be a great piece, if you're the type of person that, you're pretty good with daily and weekly reflections. Okay. So reflection isn't about judgment. Like I said, it's about clarity. When you take time to review instead of react, you build self awareness and reinforce consistency. The key takeaway here is to regularly reflect, or regular reflection helps you stay aware, make better decisions, and adjust before small issues become obstacles. Okay. So I just got to give you this example because it's important for me to have my clients do their weekly reviews, because if I see that they're not increasing in their strength, for instance, or they're missing a lot of training sessions, and I'm asking them, hey, like, what's going on? They're just like, oh, I just need you to just repeat that week. And I'm just like, okay, but what happened? It's just like, oh, stress was really high. All right, cool. Maybe we just reduce the volume of training this week, or maybe we reduce the amount of training days that you have. Because if that's going on for 4 weeks in a row, then it's like, okay, you probably can't handle 3 full training days. Maybe you just need 2 training days so you can still stay consistent and at least maintain some level of performance while life is kind of crazy. So reflection is huge in making sure that instead of taking 10 steps back, maybe you only take 2 steps back because you got ahead of it and we were able to make those small adjustments. So reflection is key and is a really great tool to utilize in all things performance. Okay. So pillar number 3, build resilience. So the goal here is to strengthen your ability to adapt and recover from challenges. So both in training and in life. So resilience is the capacity to stay steady through challenge and change. It doesn't develop through consistent exposure to it. It develops, through consistent exposure to manageable stress, where you learn to adjust instead of avoid. So you learn to adjust instead of avoid like those challenges completely. So when you're able to give yourself, again, I put manageable stress in there because if we literally throw the whole entire kitchen sink at ourselves, and let's just say we're just getting back into training and we're trying to adjust our nutrition and we're trying to establish this nighttime routine, we're challenging ourselves in an extreme manner at that point. And if we also have some work stress going on, or maybe it's relationship stress going on, we're not going to be able to sustain that for very long. And then if we fall off, then we might think that, okay, maybe I'm not disciplined enough. Or we may think that, oh, I'm just not cut out for this. And then we just give up completely, the all of or nothing mindset, right? So as you can see, as we continue to go through this, these different mindset traps pop up. But they pop up because we try to do things in an unsustainable way. So if we say, okay, we want to get back into working out a little bit more consistently, then it's like, all right, if you only been training 2 days a week and you miss one day every month, or not one day every month, but every week you still miss one of those days, it's just like, okay, stay with those 2 days a week. And maybe we need to figure out which day is more consistent for you to have that training on. Or if it's a time constraint, maybe it's reducing the amount of time that you're going to commit to that training session. That way you still get 2 training sessions in. So it's making those small adjustments that still challenge you, but it challenges you in a way to make adjustments and not make excuses or believe that you're just not cut out to do this at this moment. And now you're going to take 10 steps back. And then later on, you're going to try and get back into it. And now it's going to be harder to climb back uphill. So it's not built by pushing harder, but by practicing stability under pressure. So physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you build this by practicing those things. Whenever life gets crazy, you're practicing still staying consistent with your workouts by making those small adjustments. Okay, fewer sets this day because I got a lot going on with family. Okay, I could do a little bit more this day because I got a little bit more free time. And it's going to make up for the time that I missed. But I'm not going to overdo it and end up causing myself an overuse injury because I decided to push a lot more this day because I could handle the pressure and I'm not sure the next day I'm going to get a workout in. So it goes back to kind of like mastering your schedule here. And you can go back to the recovery blueprint and look at what we talked about as far as mastering your schedule there. All right. So in your daily routine, resilience shows up when you complete training sessions, even when you're tired, maintain balanced nutrition during a busy week, choose rest when your body needs recovery, or stay grounded when your thoughts become reactive. So again, resilience shows up when you do these things. These small choices reinforce your ability to follow through on what matters, even when it's inconvenient. So over time, this approach carries beyond fitness. The same discipline that keeps you consistent with habits, habits strengthens your patience, decision making, and emotional regulation in other areas of your life. Building resilience means developing the capacity to adapt, recover, and continue progressing, whether the challenge is a tough workout or difficult season in your life. Okay, so the big takeaway here on building resilience is resilience grows from steady follow through in both fitness and life. Each moment of consistency strengthens your capacity to adapt and continue to move forward. So when you realize that you can still keep up with your nutrition habits or your nighttime routine when life gets tough, when you have a little bit more stress going on in certain areas of your life, that really builds your mental toughness and your belief in yourself to follow through with this thing. You reinforce that mindset instead of having to tell yourself that, oh, I think I can do it, or I don't know, I'm unsure because you decided to do too much. Again, you took the wrong approach or the inappropriate approach for you at that time. So that made you believe a belief that isn't grounded in truth, right? You just took the wrong approach. So when you take the right approach with just like small adjustments, small manageable stress increases in these areas or challenges to challenge your mental toughness, or your mindset, then that's what's going to allow you to sustain these habits and follow through with more and believe that you can handle more and take on more as you continue down and through your fitness journey. Okay. So reviewing the 3 pillars and actually reviewing this whole entire thing here is we understand the thought patterns that hold us back, right? And that was, the all or nothing thinking, the quick fix mindset, comparison thinking, negative self-talk, and over-identification. Okay. And we also went into the part of clarifying your core values and strengthen your why. So we understand how to strengthen the why here. We understand how to find our why by our core values and build awareness through consistent reflection. So the more you reflect, the more aware you are of just what you need to make adjustments on in order to move forward. And you don't have blinders on when it comes to what happened in your training based off of emotion. And then you develop resilience through just small intentional challenges. So small intentional challenges, not changing things drastically that are beyond your capacity to adapt, both mentally and physically. And then we learned how to align your daily actions with the person you want to become. Okay. So closing it out here, when you reconnect with your values, reflect consistently, and practice resilience, you stop chasing motivation and you create it. So the goal isn't perfection, it's alignment between who you are, what you do, and who you're becoming. A strong body follows a steady mind. Resilience isn't found, it's built one decision at a time. Thank you for listening and making it through this. So again, make sure to download the PDF guide for you to go through this and find your values if you haven't already done this in your life, and see what you need to start to anchor your training, your nutrition, your recovery, and just your whole entire fitness journey in, so that way you can become more consistent with it. Understand how to implement just small intentional challenges so that way you can improve your resilience as well. And then also make sure to reflect consistently. So, consistently reflecting on the things that are going on in your daily life, your weekly life, and then also monthly or even quarterly, whatever cadence actually works for you. Okay. So, if you have any questions that I didn't hit on in this that you thought I might have hit on, or if there's anything that I may have missed, feel free to put it down in the comment section below, and I'll definitely be sure to get back to you and potentially do a 2.0 of this and add those things in so that way you can get the most benefit from this. Um, and if you also want to connect this to all the other guys that I have, the recovery blueprint, the nutrition blueprint, and the full body workout course, then make sure to look at those in the comment section down below, not in the comment section, but in the description down below. And, download those as well. And you can watch or listen to the podcast episodes that also align with those. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.